Partner Interview. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Looking forward to learning more about you. And I guess to get going, can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your MSP?
Yeah, my name is Bill Hughes. I'm the CEO and founder of Weehooey Inc. We're located in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. We were founded in 2010. We started out as a break fix shop. We've grown up to managed service, and we have a professional services side of the business as well now.
Excellent. And one of the questions isn't on my normal list, but your name intrigues me. I mean, where did Weehooey come from?
It's a long story. The short version of it that we often tell our clients is it's the sound you make when your IT actually works. The longer version of that is that we were looking for something that was unique before the company started, and I had the domain name and the company name. And when I started the company, I decided that that was a good name for the company to sort of stand out, as opposed to something like Hughes Computer IT or something, boring like that.
Yeah,
It
it
served
does
us
stand
well.
out. Yeah, absolutely stands out. I've heard it mentioned in JumpCloud meetings and things, and every time you hear it, it just pings off. Like you say, there's a lot of sort of slightly, how shall I say it, less interesting names out there. So
Yeah.
I do really like it. Yeah. And you say it was sort of 2010 when you found it as a sort of break fix organization. Was that
Yes,
and you sort of transitioned from there into managed services over time?
that's right. We did. I have a pretty diverse background. I've worked in a lot of industries. uh, two sort of larger time periods that I spent. One was in the chemical industry, international trading of raw material chemicals, North America, Europe, and China. And then I left that to spend some more time with family. And I was in local, so went from a global to a very local in commercial printing. The common thread through all of that was workflow processes and IT. I always managed the IT in those areas and was often disappointed with IT service providers. So I decided that that was a good time to start up, and it was sort of the beginning of the cloud. So a lot of IT shops then were all on-prem, very server focused. So I often say that Weehooey was born in the cloud.
Okay, that is interesting. And I think you're probably the first person I've spoken to that's had that particular career trajectory. I think it's probably unique from chemical trading to MSP. So that's fascinating to hear. And it's also interesting that you kind of say 2010 was kind of the beginning of the cloud. So you weren't probably burdened with necessarily all of the kind of historical practices that a lot of other break fix to MSP organizations were having to go through at the time.
Yeah, that's true. And being a smaller chemical trading company, we were, we worked remotely. So that was in 2000 through 2006. So that was long before, working remotely was a thing. And we had a distributed workforce then. So I had to manage the IT challenges with that. I was vice president of sales, but we were predominantly a sourcing organization. So I had to, technology was an important enabler for us then. Not easy,
Yeah.
but we did it.
No, and I guess that's given you a view from both sides of the fence. So from the
It has.
from being a kind of a consumer of the services, and now you're providing the services, I guess it's useful to be able to understand what the business owner or the proprietor or whoever you're dealing with at your clients, you've got a good idea what they're going through.
Very much so, especially as we're growing. A lot of the conversations that we have with clients, larger clients in particular, they're not really interested in megahertz or gigabits or what the technology really is. They're really looking for business results. And some of my background has led us to be able to talk in those terms of business results as opposed to cool technology.
Yeah, yeah, I think we do sometimes well, I certainly do get sort of tied up in our own kind of IT bubble of jargons and acronyms and things, whereas the end users ultimately just want to get their job done, as
That's
just
right.
get their job done. And when it comes to, I was about to say securely, but they probably don't even care about that. They just want to get their job done, and I guess it's up to us to make sure it's secure.
Yeah, Yeah, and from our perspective, we started out when security, again, we were born in the cloud. Security was an important part early days. So it's been baked into everything we've done. So that's been nice. And then maybe a little bit earlier than others, we started seeing security really as a business tax almost, in the sense that it didn't add a lot of value to the business discussion in terms of, if you do this, you're going to sell more. There's some cases, but we really saw it as a cost of doing business, and we baked it into everything we were doing. So it was an interesting. So we were talking about security before others, and then after everybody was, literally everybody talking about security, we stopped talking about it so much. And we've had customers say, "Well, why? What about security?" And I said, "Well, it's baked in. It's you don't ask us if you use computers because you need computers to do what you do. Similarly, you need security to do what you do, and we bake it in."
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. But you're right, it is. It should be kind of always in there. So it's interesting that you did that. Okay, so let's just jump on and just talk a little bit about some other topics. One of which is around, I guess, the product stack or the services that you offer. You mentioned that you're sort of born in the cloud, but are you are you in the kind of Microsoft ecosystem or Google or a mixture of both?
Well, the born in the cloud we were very early on. We were a Google Apps, Google's Google Workspace reseller. That was one of our early partnerships. And that was before Microsoft's product offering was really matured in terms of software as a service. They were still on-prem, very much server-based. So a lot of our customers early on were customers looking to decommission servers. So we did more decommissioning than we did commissioning of servers, because as you might imagine, when we were starting, everybody needed a server, had a server, and they had an MSP to manage it or a break-fix shop to manage it. So our opportunity to talk to them was about challenges related to email and collaboration in an affordable way. So we really grew through our work with Google Workspace and AWS and other cloud platforms. And then in 2015, we bought a competitor who was a traditional competitor with servers, and we took on that, and we started, growing that business and realizing, the challenges for the people that still needed to. And then in 2018, we became a Proxmox partner in virtualization. So over the past few years, with Proxmox being a Proxmox partner, we're actually seeing a bit of a trend back from the cloud for some workloads or for some client profiles where they tried to move to the cloud and were unsuccessful entirely. I think really going forward, the hybrid approach is what's going to happen. I think you're going to see this shifting back and emphasis on the edge or on-prem cloud. And I think that I think it will continue to change as workloads and the underlying infrastructure change.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think one of the things that you mentioned there, which kind of got me thinking, was around those conversations MSPs would have with their clients in the kind of on-premise days. And it would be, my email's not working, or the database is disconnected, or problem with SQL or Exchange. And that was the MSP conversation, or majority of conversations you'll be having with the clients about upgrading Exchange servers every 3 years or upgrading the hardware. Whereas now I guess people see reliable email and database access as almost the sort of table stakes, to use the term that people use. It's sort of built in. And the conversations that MSPs are having with their clients are more about stuff that you've got background in, more about business processes and automation and sort of becoming more efficient, rather than the kind of nuts and bolts of IT that it would have been back in the early days.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. It's one of the things that we do early with clients is develop an IT plan. And I'm sure there's other managed service providers that take that same sort of approach, but there's still a large number of clients out there that don't take that approach to their IT. So when they say, "Hey, we need a new server, but we don't want to spend the money on that. Can you talk to us about some alternatives?" We will say, before we have that conversation, we'll talk about their IT strategy. What is it that IT does for your business? Is it a cost of doing business? Is it a growth opportunity? Is it a risk mitigation? What's the real value that IT is providing to your organization? we can quote on a lot of different things, but really we need to know how IT is important to your business. And that's the conversation we tend to have. And over time, we've really worked to make that, sort of how we do the business with the clients.
Yeah. And do you find then, having had that conversation, I'm not saying in your particular scenario, but in MSPs in general, that you would come across clients that just aren't a good fit in terms of they probably don't see IT as something they want to invest in or strategic to their business. They just see it as a cost and want to kind of do the bare minimum.
Yeah, we definitely come across clients like that. We regularly have potential clients that we're looking at, and we say, you know what, we don't think this is a good fit. The reality is most of the time they decide that based on the things that we're talking about, and it doesn't necessarily align with what they're talking about. Well, can we get this 10 cents cheaper? And we're like, you probably can somewhere. You're not going to get that 10 cents cheaper from us because you're going to need to give up something that we consider to be important. We really see it as a partnership with the clients. And we also see it with some existing clients in the past where we maybe in the past were not so focused on that and they've continued down that path, or there's a management change or a buyout or some things like that. So we're open to clients. One of the things that really kind of stress for our clients is that, if we're not a good fit any longer, whether they decide that or we decide that, then we should make a change and do that. So it's about a business partnership. They should decide whether they want to work with us. And similarly, we're very much deciding whether we want to work with them.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of that, but yeah, a lot of those difficult conversations, or just general conversations that say, it's a partnership, and that's the term you work there, and partnerships work both ways, and
totally.
there's got to be, and I know that the term trusted advisor is thrown around a lot in this space, but there's got to be a situation where if you are speaking to them and saying you need to be doing this because of this security or upgrading this because of this, there's got to be an element of, okay, we understand why you're telling us to do that, so we need to do it, rather than just say can we avoid doing it or save 20 cents or something.
Exactly. And that's why starting with their IT plan really makes the difference, because the conversation changes with saying, you need this firewall, you need this security measure, you need this thing. Really, they have to then take, whatever, call it relationship equity we've built up with them. And then we need to spend that in a sense that they need to trust us. But instead, if we talk to them about their IT plan, where they said that security, high availability, those things are really important to them, we then have the conversation about, this is what you said you want, and this is how you're going to achieve that. And that really changes the dynamic of the relationship, where they go, oh, okay, I see how that ties in directly to our business goals, and not so much about, someone that potentially is motivated by selling us more stuff.
Yeah. And when it comes to your clients, I know we're kind of going all over the place here, but you're giving me so much to think about. But when it comes to your clients and you're having those conversations around security or best practice or tools, and I guess there's two parts to the question. Are they firstly more aware now, would you say, of the risks around security, and or are they reacting to either insurance or regulatory demands to say they need to be more involved in it, or is that driving adoption, or is that driving an increased awareness of the cyber threats, or is it just they see stuff in the news, or some companies just blissfully unaware of what's out there?
I think there's a range. The clients that have been with us longer, we've spent more time in, education and discussion. There's often a change we'll see with some of our existing clients where they have a specific need. It's one of the areas, just sort of kind of tie it back into one of the earlier parts that I talked about, how we bake in security. And we see it sort of as a bit of a business tax that you have to do it to succeed. There are some cases that you're kind of alluding to with cybersecurity insurance, but with clients, we have some of our clients that their clients, and that comes out of those conversations about the IT plan, some of those clients, larger ones or more sophisticated ones, are making demands in terms of, compliance of some sort with security. And that by then tying their ability to compete at that client or to provide more value to their client, security does actually sometimes provide additional value. And, transcends the sort of business tax, if you will. It becomes now something to invest in and to move forward. So it really, I don't think that there's any one thing in terms of clients' perspective on security. The thing that really still sort of stands out, one of the challenges we have is, and I'm sure other MSPs have the same thing, is the clients that are most interested in security are the ones that have had a security incident. The ones that haven't feel like whatever they're doing is sufficient, or that the fear, it's overblown, the media has overblown it. So until they've experienced it, they're less, they have a less mature view, I would think, of security. Not always, and that's not necessarily meaning they don't value it. Sometimes they're afraid, and unreasonably afraid, because of what they've seen. But until they've actually experienced some sort of security incident, or something that's, someone close to them, an associate or something like that, they really don't fully appreciate it. I guess you would kind of liken it to someone that, you go see your doctor and say, well, if you don't quit smoking, you're going to get cancer. Well, you're going to either say, well, I'm not going to get cancer, or you're going to say, I know a lot of people, I'm really afraid of cancer. What are all the things I can do? So until it's really close and they've got some tangible experience with it, it can be a challenging conversation. And the way we overcome that, or help them, is really through having a clear IT plan where we tie the IT investments to their IT goals and business goals, sorry.
Yeah, and just a couple of things came to mind there again, is one of which is around, you don't want to be selling on fear. I guess that's the doctors, I'm not saying they're selling on fear, but it's kind of the people aren't going to buy if you're calling up prospects and saying you need to do this because if you don't, this is going to happen. That doesn't play very well anyway, and so you don't want to be selling on fear. And the other thing that came to my mind is, I think you're the first Canadian guest we've had on the podcast. I spoke to many partners in the US, and I've spoken to many partners in Europe, specifically the UK. And when I asked that sort of question, I think there's a difference, and I don't know whether you're maybe slightly in the middle. Whereas when I ask what's driving the increase in the UK, a lot of it is coming from compliance and regulation, and they saying that you need to do this, this, and this, and it's regulatory based. Whereas in the US, I've generally got the word, I don't know, it's because of the sort of more litigious society, but they're saying it's insurance is driving it. So they're kind of, rather than going the regulatory route, they go in the insurance route. And I don't know whether kind of Canada maybe sits somewhere in between those two camps.
We do, because the majority of our business is with someplace other than Canada, because we're not quite big enough to do all of our, have all of our economy focused inward. So a lot of our clients, so on our managed service side of our business, a lot of our clients participate a lot in the American market in one way or other. And we do through our professional services, where we offer services around Proxmox and virtualization within the United States. So yeah, we definitely see that. And a lot of the conversations around being a managed service provider often have focus around the United States. So you're definitely right. There's a sort of a risk mitigation, but they do also have some compliance there with HIPAA, their healthcare. So, or, they have a massive defense industry. So there's a lot of clients there that are looking to be compliant with what's required to sell to or in the defense industry. And you're right that definitely Europe, GDPR has had an impact in North America, a significant one. And so customers that participate in those markets, that's also, compliant. So I think that's accurate, that we are really a hybrid between the two.
Oh, fascinating. Just something that sort of occurred to me. So, okay, well, moving on to the partnership with JumpCloud. I mean, you're a very valued partner of ours, and
thank you.
So, would love to know a little that I can sort of feed back to the team. Is, I mean, how did you initially hear about JumpCloud, and what made you kind of take a look at it? And was it to solve maybe a particular problem, or was it? Well, just tell us how it panned out.
Oh, okay. JumpCloud, we've been aware of it for a while on a number of different, when you're in the managed service space, things that are becoming popular or of interest, they pop up in different places. So we've become aware of JumpCloud, and we've been struggling we had we were born in the cloud, but we ended up with Active Directory deployment ourselves. We've got a small hosting business. And when I say hosting business, we've got metal servers, we've got servers and virtualized servers, and it's a Proxmox cluster, and we host a lot of our clients' workloads and again, it kind of, the thread there is, at one point we spent most of our time moving our clients to the cloud or moving workloads to the cloud. And then when we started seeing that it was challenges in getting everyone to the cloud, we realized that there was not every workload was well suited for the cloud, or not every client was suited for the cloud. So, and that ran parallel with us, becoming involved with Proxmox. If you're not familiar, Proxmox is a company that produces a product called Proxmox Virtualization Environment, and it's a direct competitor to VMware. And with the changes at VMware in the last little while, it's become very busy part of our business. So we did that deployment, and we started. We had one of our first big customers in our hosting was someone that had moved to AWS. Didn't like that. Then they moved to a hybrid situation with a more regional data center. And that was also a challenge for them. And since then, they've moved entirely into our infrastructure. So our business is really a bit of a hybrid ourselves. So we've got the managed service, then we have some hosting, and we have some professional services. So in that, we had developed, we were running Active Directory ourselves because of all the advantages that had in terms of security, and we've grown larger and more complicated, and we developed the expertise with our team for Active Directory. So we've been thinking about, struggling with, do we go to Azure? And do we go to Azure? Do we are both currently a Microsoft partner. Their Office 365 or Microsoft 365 is very mature. And sorry, I'm taking a bit of a tangent here to talk about it, but I think it's important to the discussion on, why we're in JumpCloud. A number of years ago, I'm not quite sure when it was, but Microsoft really recognized the opportunity for software as a service, their Office 365, Microsoft 365. So at one point, we were deploying more Google Workspace, and we were moving people out of Microsoft on-prem products. But then as Microsoft's product offering got really good and really strong, we were no longer deploying as many to Google Workspace as we had been, but we still had quite a large number of Google Workspace clients. So now today, most of our clients are, if they're not in Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, end up going to Microsoft 365. So we had a fair bit of that and developed the expertise with that. But ourselves, we're still a Google Workspace because, that's a product we know and love. But we recognize the value in the Microsoft 365. So, but we were struggling with the on-prem, Active Directory and the limitations of it and the challenges of securing it and, just all the things with Active Directory. So then we were looking at it, but we hadn't quite decided. And the other part of it is we have a fairly large Linux deployment for our own infrastructure, and managing keys, SSH keys for that can be a struggle. So that kind of lays the groundwork. We've got this infrastructure that we need to manage. It's Linux, it's Windows, it's in the cloud, it's on-prem. We very much want security baked into whatever we were doing. And we had a client that came to us that we were doing some consulting for on the professional services side of the business. And they said, can you integrate this product with JumpCloud? And we're like, yeah, probably. Let us take a look. And we took a look at it. And so they were looking at it as you might use JumpCloud. And we were like, yeah, this would totally work for you. They said, can you help us with it? And I said, well, we can. We don't fully know it, so we'll take a look at it. And we started taking a look at it. And Holden is Holden Smallbill here, looks after security and infrastructure, and who is actually in the process of migrating us from a password manager to another password manager. We were having this whole IAM discussion, identity and access management discussion. I said, have we looked at JumpCloud at all? And I said, take a look at this. And I said, it does this, LDAP policy, it does all these things. And he's like, no, I haven't actually looked at that. And I said, I looked at it a while ago, but it didn't really resonate with me until now when we've got this challenge of on-prem, cloud, and all these different pieces. So we looked at it and we actually got a trial set up before our customer had even deployed it and started working with it. And then, but it was a little bit slow starting because it is such a big product, and it's not easy to communicate why it's valuable. It was one of the struggles we had early on in deciding to, full on come in on as a JumpCloud partner, was we were struggling on how to communicate the value to it. And I think other service providers probably similarly, if you've ever tried to sell a client that didn't have Active Directory, it can sometimes be a struggle to explain the value. And if you recall back in earlier in the conversation, we have an IT plan and really want to tie that to business goals. Active Directory is not it's not easy to fully tie that in the cost if you don't have someone that doesn't have it. JumpCloud had that same sort of challenge for us. So, but what did start happening was we manage, as I mentioned, a lot of Linux machines, and we were struggling with managing all the keys. And when we realized and understood the SSH, and I know I'm kind of focusing on one, but it is so elegant how JumpCloud manages SSH keys. We were looking at going to certificate-based and a bunch of other things. It is beautiful. It's beautiful. And I said, well, even if we do not roll this out for clients, we're never going to get rid of JumpCloud because of that integration. And then we started deploying it ourselves, and we dog food everything that we can, meaning, we use it internally, so we get to understand it. We understand it both from a client perspective and deployment. And there's hiccups, when you're learning how to deploy something. Sometimes you don't do it right the first time, and we like our customers to have a good experience. So then we had conversations with, the partner onboarding team and went through it, and, our sales team got involved, and we had lots of discussions about, how do we justify it? Because initially it seemed very expensive. JumpCloud seemed like expensive. But then when we started to look at it and we started to deploy it, it was as we got into it, the expense of JumpCloud started to fade away in terms of, the value that it provides. And even today, if you were to ask me to explain it, it's going to be a struggle for us to explain it clearly. I can say some things, I can say, well, you can onboard easier, you can offboard easier. That's hard for someone who's not in IT to visualize and understand it. Or, reset passwords. They say, well, reset a password, that's easy. That's like a customers have to say that that's very easy. Because doing it once for one person is very easy on one platform. Doing it on all the platforms that clients have and doing that is hard. So so it was not an easy, we were not just sort of like, oh yeah, we love this, we got to, roll this out for all of our clients. There was a struggle in understanding how we were going to communicate the value. So that's a little bit of some of the struggles that we had in really understanding how to deploy JumpCloud. The onboarding team helped, but we also, something else I should also add at this point is there are a lot of vendors that supply or sell to the managed service space. They have a lot of promises that they make. We have regularly been disappointed. If every vendor to the managed service space, when you talk to their sales team and they told you that these things were going to be in a certain way, if those always came true, life would be glorious. The reality is it's usually some percentage of that. And the better vendors are closer to 100 and the not so great vendors are less than 100. One of the things that, JumpCloud was making some claims, the partner team was making some claims, and we're like, that doesn't, you seem like really nice people, but we're struggling because we've been told by other vendors in this space that, oh yeah, that'll work great, or this will be simple, or, it'll do that. And we come later to find out, well, there's an asterisk or multiple asterisks, or well, not in your case, or the way you want to do it. So there was definitely a struggle there because we want to have a standard stack across our customer base. And so what we were trying to figure out was, would JumpCloud work for all of our managed service clients? So that was sort of a long-winded, path. I'm sure you have some questions from that.
Well, I have one in particular, which is the one that you subsequently went on to say you can't answer. So I'm going to ask it you anyway, because you hit upon a super interesting point there, which is explaining JumpCloud. So part of what I do, part of what the MSP team does, is we go to events, MSP-focused events, and we've got a booth and we're speaking to MSPs walking past, as you say, with a little bit maybe vendor fatigue and over-promising and under-delivering, the myriad of solutions that are out there. And I guess it's how do we explain JumpCloud to an MSP? But I guess thinking about it from a slightly different perspective, if you were at an event or you were speaking to another MSP at a local meetup or local community meeting in your area, and they said, "Hey Bill, we hear that you're using JumpCloud. What would that do for our MSP?" I mean, how would you quickly have that kind of 2-minute conversation with another MSP about JumpCloud? Assuming that they do kind of understand the needs and the requirements, how would you pitch JumpCloud to them?
Well, in those 2 minutes, I would convince them to have coffee with me because it's going to take more than the 2 minutes. But I guess it's going to depend a little bit. I guess, let me think about how I would do it. It's going to depend on whether there are, like, a lot of managed service providers are a Microsoft focused shop. We're a little bit more broad than that, in that we use the Google Workspace, we do the Microsoft, but we also have Linux. And I think the shops that have Mac as well would be, if you had those, that would be particularly good. I think what I would say to them is to get a trial of JumpCloud and try it yourself. I think that one of the things that we came to was, we were used to looking at a vendor product as either reducing our cost and complexity, making our lives better. Is it a product for us, the MSP, or is it a product for our clients where, we add some value? The tricky part about JumpCloud is it's both. And if you look at it from either, it might be harder to justify if you just look at it as making your life easier. Similarly, it might be also difficult looking at it, can you add a product to your lineup for your clients where you add some value to what they're doing? And really, it covers both of those sides of things. And that's really what we came down to. It makes our lives easier. It replaces some different products within our stack, and it provides us with the capability. So to give you, and I think I would have to give an example. For example, we have completely ripped out Active Directory from our organization. We decommissioned our domain controllers. We had our Linux boxes tied into Active Directory for authentication. We took it all out. We no longer have any domain, Active Directory domain. That has made our infrastructure costs lower in terms of just operating a business, not necessarily a managed service provider. We also, a big area that it's made a huge difference for us is in new computer deployment. We struggled with that a little bit. We have an RMM and we have some scripts and we have some things, but the pieces within the JumpCloud that allow us to deploy near zero touch, deploy Windows workstations to clients, really, it had the missing pieces to allow us to do that. So from that perspective, because hardware, we don't make a lot of money on hardware. The goal is not about hardware. The reason we sell hardware is so we have hardware at our clients that we know and understand, but there's not massive margins in hardware. But being able to deploy new hardware to clients dramatically improved with introducing JumpCloud to that process.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I agree with what you said, but one of the things you did mention is obviously around Linux, which a lot of MSPs, some do, some don't. But one of the areas you did touch upon is sort of Apple and with sort of Mac and iOS devices, whereas we're seeing a kind of switch to, because the competitive marketplace for staff, I guess, is that there's either more choose your own device or maybe bring your own device. So there's definitely more Apple and Linux devices in the ecosystem now than there used to be. And MSPs have probably got to, almost reluctantly, kicking and screaming, got to find a way to
Yes.
support these devices, because
Yes.
traditional RMMs don't do a great job of them. I think that's fairly well
Very much so.
accepted. Yeah, so I think
Yes.
that the mixed environment is probably a good win for JumpCloud.
The thing that you mentioned there, so we had always avoided mobile device management. The clients that we have, maybe it's this type of clients didn't really have a need or didn't see the value, or it wasn't the environment where mobile device management. So we came across a new client that was onboarding. They were in a sensitive industry that needed mobile device management as part of it, and they were using a very complicated, very very capable platform, but it was very very intensive, like very lot of administration work to go with it, and it was challenging. That was a place that we had always, we knew one day we might do that, and we know we could do some of it with, Google Workspace or some other things, but there was never really a fully featured one. And having that available to us with JumpCloud, we were able to replace that solution for them with JumpCloud, which now integrates with other elements within their business, was a major savings for us. And in fact, even though it was such a fantastic product that they really had a great product, but it was made for thousands and thousands of devices in a very complicated administrative environment. It allowed us within a very short period of time to remove all their devices from that old platform and re-provision them, and do that within JumpCloud. And it integrates with everything else nicely. So it was, there's those things that we came across that were fantastic. And to the point where, there's some clients that don't do mobile device management that we're, we've had conversations with them that they're thinking, well, maybe now's the time to deploy that as part of, what we do for them. So the fact that it covers everything, LDAP, Radius, mobile devices, both iOS and Android, Windows, Mac, Linux, it really, having that unified picture and control is fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. So that's great to hear your thoughts on that. And right, we're at time, but I've got one question that I couldn't not ask you based on what was spoken about earlier in the recording, which is around, I guess, a little bit of the view around the MSP industry, because you absolutely nailed it to begin with when we spoke about the moving from the physical to the cloud, and the role of MSPs have changed from becoming more of a kind of a reactive, keeping the email running and the servers operational, to more of a sort of business process and being involved more at a strategic level within the customer. But I mean, do you see the MSP space continuing to grow like that? And also another way, and or kind of thing, is why do you think it's important for SMEs to engage with MSPs? Do you think that more and more are looking for MSPs, or are looking to go and do it on their own? And and I guess to summarize all of that into one question, what do you think is the sort of the future for the MSP industry?
I think the future of the MSP industry, in a nutshell, is to use that, is the trusted partner. That I think that is the way to go, and that's the way the industry is going. When I first started this business, I would sit in front of clients' desktops and run their updates and diagnose problems, and there was a lot of focus on the endpoint, the computer. Today, none of my team, unless there's some special case, actually sits in front of a client's endpoint. We manage that by policy, and the reality is hardware, it's become more stable. You don't have to worry about hard drives failing as often, those sorts of things. And you used to have to diagnose, why is my Outlook not connecting, or those sorts of endpoint centric activities. And today is, can you get on the internet with a browser? Okay, your endpoint's functioning. So I think that that what's happening is just sort of a natural evolution, that there are problems that exist across the industry, such as the amount of time it takes to sit in front of a computer and travel around to the clients. Those problems get solved with technology. We keep getting better, and the hardware lasts longer and things like that. But the overall challenge for the SMEs is still technology. There's parts of technology they don't understand, or that they don't have time, or bringing someone on their team to manage that technology. I think managed service will continue on strong, and I think that the role will change, more about endpoints and servers, and more about IT strategy, more about software as a service, managing the costs of software as a service, help becoming part of the team and thinking about, how do I make my clients better? There'll always be break fix shops and the managed service, sort of more traditional things, because I think some customers get stuck in that. But the vast majority of the market, they move with their industry. And I think that managed service is strong and will continue to be strong into the future. It just won't look like it does today.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And it's interesting that I remember years ago when Microsoft launched sort of BPOS, which was the sort of predecessor to 365, and when things started to move to the cloud and the SaaS started to happen, I remember conversations with MSPs, and I was guilty of this myself, thinking, well, the MSP is going to die. There's not going to be a need for an MSP. SMEs are going to be able to go and procure telephony online. They're going to be able to purchase their productivity online. All of the stuff that MSPs were that was their main bread and butter, that kind of work disappeared. And then people thought, massively incorrectly as it turned out, that meant that the IT was going to get simpler and MSPs wouldn't be needed. Whereas it's turned out that MSPs are still needed, but in a completely different way to they were sort of 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So I think as technology gets simpler, that technology evolves, and there's always sort of the leading edge of complexity, and it will continue. Today, AI, there's big conversations about AI and still conversations about security. As those mature, that those will become, simple things that are baked into products, or there's no thought process that needs to happen, but there'll be something else of complexity within technology. And I think that that's what MSPs do, is they learn the new technology, they learn how to deploy it for clients, they take advantage of the shared experience of all their clients, the mistakes that get made and the strengths, and they take that and they share that amongst their customer base to help make their clients stronger. And I think that that's going to continue. And it's important to grow and evolve with the marketplace.
Well, yeah, couldn't put that better myself. That's a great way to finish. The MSP community is evolving, but it's going to go from strength to strength. I'm sure there will be changes and the consolidation that we're already seeing, but it's going to carry on. So thanks for your time, Bill. Really enjoyed chatting. Thanks for being such a great partner over there in Canada. We really do appreciate it. And again, yeah, thanks for your time, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And keep being JumpCloud's a fantastic partner for us, and we've really integrated it with all of our business, and we're still in the process of deploying it and learning about some elements, because it is a very big platform. But we're very happy with it, and it's really a core part of our business today, and will continue to be.
Well, that's great to hear, and it's going to keep growing. So yeah, keep checking back. There's more to come.
Nice. Excellent. Thanks, Chris.